Hello, John.
Hello, Mary.
How's your latest book going?
Oh, you mean the one I'm writing on the Loch Ness Monster? Well, it's going rather slowly at present.
Oh dear, why's that?
Well, the inspiration's there, but everything else is wrong. One day I tire myself out with the writing, and the next day I can hardly keep myself awake. Oh, on top of that, my word processor keeps breaking down.
Perhaps you need to take a week off.
Well, I'm going up to Scotland to do some research for the book next week.
That should be nice, especially if you see the monster. But you'll still have your mind on your work the whole time.
That's true. In fact, at this stage, seeing the monster would be a mixed blessing, as I'd have to rewrite and revise large chunks that I've already done. But going away gives the engineer a good chance to see where the trouble is. By the time I get back, my machine should be free of all its gremlins, even if I'm still under the weather.
2. You'll hear a lecturer speaking. His main topic is A. The problems people have sleeping. B. The health effects of tea and coffee. C. People's mental abilities.
Let's put it this way. Some people can and some people can't. It's all to do with having an overactive brain, or the opposite. I won't say underactive, but, well, quiescent. Some of my patients say they just put their heads on their pillows and they're off straight away, while others spend hours counting sheep, making tea, which isn't a very good idea, or reading novels from cover to cover. By the way, tea and coffee are bad because they're stimulants. They keep the brain active. And not just the brain, but the body too. The caffeine they contain stimulates the stomach, the bladder, and a number of other vital organs. They're the last thing I'd recommend as a nightcap.
3. You'll hear a man called Mr. Waterson being questioned in court. He claims to have forgotten A. The appearance of Mrs. Enderby's hair. B. The time of day when he last saw her. C. The time of day when he was watching television.
I last spoke to Mrs. Enderby on Tuesday. Then the following day...
Can you be more precise? Was it morning, afternoon, evening? Can you tell us the hour?
Well, I find it hard to remember after all these weeks.
But you've already told the court about some of the television programs you were watching. No memory problems there, it seems, which suggests that you spent the evening at home. In which case, you must have seen the victim, Mrs. Enderby, during the daylight hours and presumably noticed the state of her hair.
I've already told you I never noticed the state of her hair.
The jury will form its own conclusions about the state of your memory, Mr. Waterson.
There's nothing wrong with my memory.
Unless, perhaps, it's a little selective. Now, think again about that fateful Tuesday. Never mind what you want to remember. What do you remember?
4. You'll hear part of a conversation between a man and a woman. The woman ends up A. Unable to believe the man. B. Struck by his generosity. C. Struck by his lack of generosity.
You can't be serious.
Yes, I am. I've won the jackpot.
£1 million? I still can't believe it.
Well, how can I prove it? Wait till the money comes tomorrow. I'll show you the cheque. In fact, I'll do more than that. I'll treat you. And I do mean treat you.
That sounds exciting.
Oh, yeah. I'll have more than enough for myself, and I mean to look after all my friends.
Oh, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry I ever doubted your word.
Oh, don't worry. You haven't offended me. As soon as I knew I was in the money, I thought of you. And I said to myself, I'll lash out on Jean. I'll buy her a CD or a pair of slippers.
Oh, well, thanks. That's nice. That's very nice.
5. You'll hear a lecturer addressing a group of students. He is concerned that the students A. shouldn't all try to read the same books at once. B. should buy the really important books which he has ordered for them. C. should divide up so that they cover the whole of the course between them. Now, the book list has all your necessary reading for the term. The exam will have 6 essay questions, and I've divided the book list up into 6 corresponding sections. If you read 2 or 3 books from each of the sections, you ought to be quite well prepared. though you'll need to come to the classes too. I'd like to think that goes without saying. Now, buying a dozen books would cost you £100, possibly more. I realise that almost no one here could afford that sum, so I've checked with the library and in certain cases ordered copies. These are the absolutely vital ones which you really do need to borrow or buy. Divide yourselves up into 2s and 3s, and some study one topic while others study another one. The library should then be able to supply the different groups in turn. But do make sure that you've covered the whole of the syllabus by the end of the course. And don't forget the second-hand bookshop, which can often help you out if need be. 6. You'll hear a conversation between two golfers. The man is losing his golf balls because A. There is something wrong with his club or the way he plays. B. There is something wrong with his arm. C. There is something wrong with his glasses.
Oh, no. That's the 7th golf ball I've lost this week.
I don't think you're getting under them, George.
No, it's not that. It's this awful club.
Looks fine to me.
I'll show you, Samantha. Look straight along it. No, not like that. I'll hold it for you. Yes, that's better. Now, can't you see the way it's bent?
Well, not really. In fact, to be honest, no, not at all.
Oh. Well, it could be the fact that I've lost a lens from my glasses. Hang on, let me try holding out my arm. Oh dear, my arm looks bent as well.
I think that could be the answer, George.
7. Listen to part of an interview on the radio. Mr. Ferguson, who speaks first, thinks that A. Cheap houses are the best investment. B. Dearer houses are the best investment. C. There's no fixed rule about whether to buy a cheap house or a dearer one.
There are various things to consider when you're moving house. There'll obviously be a limit to what you can afford, but how can you get the best value for money? Lower-priced houses sometimes gain in value faster than higher-priced ones. Buy just before this happens, and you're getting a bargain. The gap between cheaper and dearer narrows. Then a few years later, it opens up again as the dearer houses pull away and regain their true value. In which case, it's the dearer ones that reward the timely purchaser.
That's all very well, Mr. Ferguson, but in practice, people are very restricted in their choice. A buyer with several children and a job to go to in a certain part of the country at a certain point in his career is, to all intents and purposes, forced to buy a house of a certain size in a certain place, and thus at a roughly preset price. It comes down to force of circumstances, not free choice.
But there can still be an element of wise investment. The wise purchaser can always consider the state of the market. Sometimes it may be wiser to rent a house for a while.
8. You'll hear a radio news report about a late-night incident in a town. The incident involved a man protesting about A. Rising water bills. B. Police behaviour. C. Wasted water or electricity.
The incident happened on a Thursday night just before midnight. The man was reported to have left the club in Mount Street and run down the High Street shouting. On reaching the Market Street fountains, he waded to the central island and jammed a flagpole into the water jet, thus putting the fountain out of action. He later said he was raising the flag of freedom as a protest over rising water bills. The police surrounded the fountain and waited for the man to return to the edge. He received a caution, but later claimed that the police were acting outside their powers, since the fountain is private property. Responding to claims that the fountain wasted precious water, a council spokesperson pointed out that the water is constantly cycled by a hidden pump. The spokesperson declined to comment on the cost of the electricity needed to drive the pump.
Part 2. You'll hear a man called Mike telling you about his plans for the evening. For questions 9 to 18, complete the notes which summarize what he says. You'll need to write a word or a short phrase in each box.
Hello, I'm Mike. Jill has just phoned to say that she's coming to visit me. She should arrive just after 4 o'clock. So, here I am at the Tourist Information Office. I wanted to call at lunchtime, but they were closed, and I've had to wait until 2 o'clock. They've given me some leaflets, and I've bought myself a local paper. I want to find somewhere good for us to go tonight. Jill used to be mad on music and dancing. And me, I was always keen on sport. Well, watching it on television anyway. Jill was the one who went in for all the exciting things, like skiing down mountains. There are plenty of restaurants, but the food isn't always all that good, and I probably can't afford it anyway. Oh dear, I don't know what to choose. Oh, this looks good. There's a guided tour of the local television studios. If you're lucky, you can actually see some of the stars filming new episodes of soap operas and things. What does it say here in the small print? Small groups only, who have to watch from behind a glass screen. That sounds okay to me, as long as there aren't loads of other people, in which case they probably won't let anyone watch at all. Oh, yes, and there's the Science Museum. Jill says she doesn't like science, but I've been on about taking her there for years, and she is quite keen on the hands-on exhibits. There's a room where all the walls are distorted and painted with misleading lines, and the furniture is all the wrong shapes and sizes. It deceives your eyes, and the funny thing is that you stumble about and bump into things. Jill says it wouldn't happen to her. She thinks she's got a superior sense of balance or something. But she doesn't know what it's like in there. I'd certainly love to prove her wrong. Oh dear, the Science Museum closes at 5 each evening. That's not very good. Oh well, we can go tomorrow. But that still leaves tonight to plan. I wonder whether she'd like to go and see Herbert and Muriel. She likes music, so why not spend the evening with two really top-class professionals?
Part 3. You will hear 5 people talking about memorable experiences they have had. For questions 19 to 23, choose from the list A to F what happened to each one. Use each letter only once. There is one extra letter which you do not need to use.
And then it happened. The rope, I think you call it the painter, don't you? Well, it suddenly came away and I was completely adrift. I remember looking towards the weir and thinking, I'll go over there if I'm not careful. Careful? That's a joke for a start. What could I possibly do? I was helpless. Well, I reached the edge. I was terrified, I can tell you. But I didn't go over. I just stayed at the brink, broadside on, in the middle of all the swirling foam. And that's when I heard the sound of the klaxons. They didn't send just one appliance, there were 3 altogether, which excited all the crowds of children and added to my total and utter embarrassment. They waded out in their welly-type things and pulled me ashore. Oh, I did feel a fool.
Of course, I can't complain. It went off just like a fire extinguisher should. And it's my fault I hadn't read the instructions. So, the foam was all over my face and clothes. And then the firemen started with their foam, not knowing I was inside the shop. I'm told I looked like a clown at the end of a circus act. And because I was really the cause of it all, I was hauled before the manager and given my marching orders, which was harsh, but not completely unfair. So, that's why I'm looking for another job. But anyway, I've learnt my lesson. There sometimes can be smoke without fire.
Well, I was just walking along the pavement, minding my own business, when this fellow working overhead caught the tin with his foot. And just when I thought I'd managed to dodge the thunderstorm, I was drenched with the stuff. I wasn't just daubed. I wasn't just splattered. I was covered in it from head to foot, and it came right through my suit to my skin. So I was red 3 times over. Red with rage, red with embarrassment, and red, a sort of fashion shade, with all this oozing, sticky mess.
I've never known such a deluge. It was trickling down my neck and filling my pockets and boots. It was just as though I'd taken a fully clothed dip in a lake. And that's when I had my great idea. I found this big sack lying just on the bank. It was full of holes, and I pulled it over my head. It was just as good as some of the latest fashions from Paris. Isn't there such a thing as a sack dress? It was still coming down like a waterfall, but I found a laundrette, went inside, and managed to get my clothes off from underneath the sack. So, I sat there, like a load of potatoes, and watched my clothes tumbling round and round inside the machine. I could have done with a bit of tumble drying myself, but at least I was under cover at last.
It went all over me, I'm not joking. It wasn't just a case of being caught red-handed. I was fluorescent red from head to toe. I've never been so embarrassed in all my life. Do you know they had to close the shop and throw half the stock away? The red was over everywhere. Of course, the briefcase people will pay for the damage. All I was doing was carrying it, minding my own business and doing my shopping. So there was no reason at all for the security canister to go off like a fire extinguisher. In fact, it was more like a bomb. It was all so sudden and quick.
Part 4. You will hear a conversation which takes place on a busy pavement between an inspector from the government, a woman called Mrs. Turnbull, and a woman who is passing by. Answer questions 24 to 30 by writing I for inspector, T for Mrs. Turnbull, or P for passerby in the boxes provided.
What are you people doing here with all these placards? You're blocking the pavement. I can't get past.
Didn't you read about it in the paper? An inspector's coming today to look at the traffic in the town and decide whether we should have a new relief road.
Well, that's splendid news. We really could do with that relief road. The traffic along Main Street's absolutely horrendous. The police, they're killing the town. A quarter of the shops are closed already. I hope you manage to persuade the inspector. The sooner we get that road, the better.
But we aren't demonstrating for the road. We're against it.
But that's absolutely ridiculous. You can't possibly want to rob the town of its new road. That's absolutely stupid.
The inspector's here, and the MP, and the TV cameras. Good. Now we'll tell him.
Yes, and I'll give him a piece of my mind, too. Excuse me, Inspector.
Ah, you must be Mrs. Turnbull. You're meeting me here to speak against the relief road, aren't you?
Certainly not. I'm an ordinary citizen, and I'm very much in favour of the road, I can assure you. Let me tell you.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Turnbull, but I came here to meet the official representatives of those bodies with a particular interest in this project. I haven't time to speak with every passerby.
But I have a particular interest, and my name's not Turnbull. It's...
No, but mine is. I'm Mrs. Turnbull, Inspector, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Bradley Action for Tunnel Transport Group.
Ah, I've had some correspondence from you, haven't I? Your group wants the road to be driven through a tunnel instead of along the proposed route between the railway and the canal. But, you know, the cost of your scheme really would be prohibitive.
But this is a narrow valley, and the proposed relief road would create more traffic, not less. You'd only be moving the existing main road by a few hundred yards. People in the town already suffer from asthma and other lung disorders. Has the government considered the long-term cost of caring for all these ill people?
The government considers the cost in accordance with established guidelines.
But do those guidelines include directives from the EU? What about the environmental considerations, for example? There are several rare species of wildflower that will be totally destroyed if this road goes ahead.
The road could be raised over any sites of special interest.
On stilts, you mean? But think of the damage putting those in will cause. No, a tunnel's much the best solution.
So you'd put off this road, which is vital for our town, just for the sake of a few miserable flowers? People are far more important.
Mrs. Turnbull, please. I can't talk to you. I have to listen to what this representative of BATT has to say. I must be fair.
Well, it's not fair if you won't listen to the ordinary voter in the street. I shall write to the papers about this. At least they've got the intelligence to get my name right.